Well, the British press is one to rarely shy away from anti-Russian sentiment, but when it comes to this latest Novichok saga, we've seen that speculation, scaremongering, and really wishful thinking seem to be battling it out with those less frenzied voices that are still calling for evidence. And one example, a latest piece in the Times, talks about alleged spies being on alert over a serious threat of a Russian attack. This piece talks about how spy agencies in the UK are apparently on standby, expecting some kind of attack from Russia any minute now. And what's the source? They just say it's sources. And of course, if that wasn't enough, the piece goes on to talk about how major sporting events seem to coincide and not by accident with developments such as the South Ossetian War back in 2008 and the Crimean referendum, saying it's not by accident and Russia is behind this. Now, in contrast, we've seen pieces along the likes of one in The Guardian that says it would be nice to see some evidence first, and that Russia's involvement really hasn't been proven yet, and facts really would not be a bad idea. And not very many people seem to know what exactly is going on in this whole saga. Yet, of course, we're also seeing British officials continuing to sing the same tune as they have been this whole time, saying now that following the second poisoning that Russia needs to come clean.
It is now time that the Russian state comes forward and explains exactly what has gone on. It is completely unacceptable for our people to be either deliberate or accidental targets, or for our streets, our parks, our towns to be dumping grounds for poison.
You know, the offer is still there to the Russian state to try and assist us, to tell us what happened, because that would definitely help keep the people of Salisbury safe.
And of course, again, the British papers have been echoing those moods expressed by the UK Home Secretary. We have headlines such as Moscow is using Britain as dumping ground for poison. Russia must come clean. We have one here that says legacy of the USSR. And last but not least, something like most likely explanation is a Russian state hooked on a poison as a weapon of terror. And of course, all this while this whole entire time, for the last 4 months, really, Russia has been saying there's nothing to do with this. It doesn't have a motive. It's called for joint investigation with the UK multiple times and is really waiting for some actual tangible facts in all of this to be presented.
Well, earlier, my colleague Nikki Aaron talked with international affairs commentator Marco Gassage. He believes the majority of the media are quoting unproven statements as facts.
What are your thoughts on the media reaction to the incident?
I think that too much of the media seems to believe that it's its national duty, its patriotic duty to parrot the government line on this one. The government line has been contradictory, but not contradicted by the media itself. So there's been so many holes in this story. I think we could throw quite a lot of water down them and throw a lot of cold water on these claims, because there's nothing to them, in as much as they change so much and vary so considerably from day to day, practically, with the original stories. And now we're being given a rehash in of course, in the middle of a sporting event in Russia. What a coincidence. And as I say, too much of the media is too willing to accept too much which is unproven and in flat contradiction to everything that looks like common sense. These events are actually designed to draw attention away from that World Cup and distract from the success of events like the Sochi Olympics. Similar events were occurring then. There's a claim that Russia would want to use these events as smokescreens. But for what? For attacking two random people in some small town in England, as if the Russian government or Mr. Putin hasn't got better things to do than to go around making mischief in some obscure regional town in some, unfortunately, relatively obscure country. It's absurd in all its tenets. And we should remember that the examples given, I noticed in the media, for example, wars in Georgia and so on and so forth, are examples which were initiated by the Western-backed governments in those regions. So it wasn't the Russians starting something in line with these events. It was actually the other way around. Those events were happening when Western-backed governments began their own campaigns, for example, towards South Ossetia all those years ago.